Hello, how's it going? My name is Albert Huang, and I'm otherwise known as FedHex. And this is How to Dance Liquid, episode number 9. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about a really important topic, and that topic is popping. Popping is a big form of dance. I mean, it's been around for longer than liquid. It has a lot of subdivisions of dance. And it has a very rich history. And so I'm not going to try to cover all of that. I'm going to just try to cover it from the perspective of liquid. But before I get too carried away, I just want to share this little gadget that I got. You see that? It's a microphone. So you should be able to, hold on. Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello. So you should be able to hear me better now. This is the first time I'm doing this, so my microphone might cut out. Unfortunately, I don't speak slower on the microphone. I just have to try to slow myself down. Anyway, so popping. Yeah, there's a lot to cover. Lots of different sub-styles of popping. Lots of different ways to think about how to do all of that. But as I said, I'm just going to try to cover the skim surface of it from the perspective of liquid, and I'm going to try to go into the mechanics of it, sort of in light of, or in sort of the pattern that I've been using to teach the other topics. We're going to talk about the mechanics, the muscle memory, and how it relates to all that other stuff. I think popping, just to give you a really big picture idea, well, first of all, let me show you what it is. Oops. Oh, baby, I just freaked out my dog. To give you a really big picture of what popping looks like, it's like lots of muscle contractions and individual isolations of different parts of your body. And the stuff we learned last week in tutting is often categorized inside the popping world. But popping, that's what that's just to give you an idea of what popping is. And I think, like strictly speaking, if you want to just learn liquid, I think it's kind of possible. It's potentially possible to learn liquid without popping, but liquid and popping go together like peanut butter and jelly. They go together like they're the yin and yang of dance, for me at least. And I like to think of them as this is going to be weird. Duct tape and WD-40. I don't know if you guys know much about duct tape or WD-40. Duct tape, they say, holds the universe together, but when people focus on duct tape, they forget about WD-40, which is the thing that makes the universe dissolve. I mean, WD-40 is sick. It is such a useful tool to have around the house. If you got anything squeaky, you got things that just won't clean, use your WD-40. It lubricates everything, and duct tape puts things together. And I like to think of those things as the way, that's a really weird metaphor, but I like to think of that as, first of all, as someone who's crafty and uses their hands to build stuff all the time. I love my duct tape and my WD-40. But second of all, I think it's a really great metaphor for liquid and popping, because liquid is that really lubricated, woo, it cleans everything, it's super slick and fast. And duct tape, and so the super slick and fast stuff is obviously the liquid. And duct tape slams things together. It makes things really coherent. It makes it so that you know exactly where you are. And there's something about the tackiness of duct tape that I liken to popping. So that's my big emotional perspective as to what popping is from a liquid perspective. But why don't I talk to you a little bit less abstractly, and let's get into some of the mechanics of what popping is. So I'm going to teach you the science of popping. And so, hey, puppy. All right. So this is how you should learn how to pop. Well, if you just see someone who is a popper, you have probably seen someone on TV or whatever, or on YouTube, especially if you're learning how to do liquid. But popping is just contraction of muscles, right? So if you try to do this by yourself, you'll probably get a few things wrong. And this is what I want to show you, right? So here, let's just put our arm all the way up here. We're going to do this L shape. It's kind of in the tut grid, but we're not really caring about that right now. So I'm here, and then I'm going to just flex my muscle. Boom, right? And you'll notice as I flex, the musculature here tenses up, obviously. It's like I'm showing you my manly muscles. And then to counteract that, I have to, if I only tense my bicep up, I would just do that, right? So I have to tense up my tricep a little bit so that I can counteract the pulling and pushing. So I'm pulling this way and this way at the same time, and I'm attacking, right? And when I do that, it's like my hand bursts for a moment. Like there's a piece of popcorn that goes, right? Usually this is done to the beat, obviously. Boom, 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 boom. And if you're learning it for the first time, you're probably doing it wrong for two ways. First of all, when you're up here, you're already tense, right? You can't really make a dynamic pop when you already are holding tension, right? Because if you're holding tension, see, if I'm already like a little bit more tense and I try to pop, it puts a little bit of extra strain on me, and it makes it so that like my pops are not really as sharp as they need to get, right? However, if you are as relaxed as you can be, and once again, popping is all about isolation. If you can just isolate the structure of your muscles, do as little as possible to keep your body in this structural space, then you can maximize the amount of poppage you get by relaxing this as much as possible. Then when you activate it, it becomes more dynamic, right? Boom! See how much further I can get with that? As opposed to me being already tense and then I just have to strain to do that. This is something that takes forever to master, and there are definitely times in my life where especially when I'm doing really small things, where I notice my upper body really tensing up. So don't feel bad if you can't, figure out how to relax yourself. That being said, relax yourself as much as you can. So that's the first mistake that most people make, is that they're already tense before they get into the pop. But the second mistake that people make is that as soon as they pop, they don't know how to relax, right? You don't know how to relax out of a pop. Or a hit, first of all. Pop is, these attacks, they're called hits in popping, right? So while you hit, it is also super important to relax out of it as fast as possible. And this, once again, takes lots of training. I mean, some people get it really quickly, but some people, it's just sort of within your nature to hit, and then you have to just like, it's this mental conditioning, and you have to like massage your arm out, and you're like, okay, back to relax. That's how you start out, but eventually you'll be good enough where you can hit and you can activate and deactivate your muscle sort of as quickly as possible, right? Boom, 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 boom. Oh, sorry, I'm going way too fast for you. So, in the beginning, I'm assuming you're a beginner here, you want to do this very slowly so that you can go way down to your relaxation point again. You want to be relaxed, pop, and in the beginning you might be a little bit tense. Just relax it and try to just keep relaxing. Don't force relaxation into it. Just be like, what is the most, just breathe. I'm like your doula, like you're pregnant or something. So just breathe, relax, pop, right? So if you're breathing and relaxing and you're just sort of trying to send good vibes through your arm, then you can relax and you can pop again, right? And in the beginning, it might be like once every measure, so it's like boom, boom, tss, 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 boom, boom, tss. And if you find that you can't quite make it to complete relaxation before the next hit comes, you might want to do it once every other measure, right? But basically what I'm suggesting is find a way to do it at a regular beat. Try to do it consistently on the beat. Hitting the beat is like really important when it comes to pops or to hits. Like when you're listening to the music and if you're hitting against a snare drum or something, you want to hit it as soon as the attack on the drum occurs. You'll just be on the beat. You'll be able to ride that beat. So anyway, yeah. So that's that. And then. So yeah, and then start speeding it up. Once you really feel like you're comfortable with being able to completely relax again, then go twice every measure. Boom, boom, tss, boom, boom, tss, boom, boom. Tss. You can tell I'm not a beatboxer. And then 4 times a measure. Boom, boom, tss, boom, boom, tss, boom. Tss. And then maybe I don't know. No, I can't do double time. But anyway, I'm already going too fast. Yeah. Make your way up to being able to get faster on it, but don't, just chill out if you need to chill out. This thing takes a lot of time, and relax and breathe through it. So yeah, that's really all popping is. I mean, I guess I'm rather formulaic because I just show you the mechanics and then I'm like, that's it. And guess what? Like every other episode, this thing is awesome. I mean, this has so many sick implications all over the place, and I'm going to start getting into those now. So I was saying earlier that popping and liquid go together like duct tape and WD-40. Let me show you a set of liquid where I don't incorporate any popping at all. Oops. I trip on my chair. All right, here we go. Cool. Let me show you, I'm going to try to keep the same rough movement ideas, but I'm going to pepper in a little bit of popping. Oops, I'm deviating from my promise. But anyway, so what popping does, it does a lot of things, but it really like sort of adds like this quality of friction to your work, right? When you are completely fluid at all times, it seems like nothing. Sometimes it might feel like you're getting really airy and you'll get out there, even if you're doing sort of on this, even if you're doing large, intricate things, you know, you might be missing the sense of being like present in the space. And that's what popping can sometimes do. Now there's another metaphor that I wanted to bring up, and I got this from a book called 101 Things I Learned in Architecture School. And one of the notes on it was like, if you're drawing a line, you want to have a nice solid dot on one end, on both ends of the line. So if you get a piece of paper, let's say there's a piece of paper out here and I have this pen and I just go like this, right? Now let's imagine what that shape of that line would look like, right? I mean, obviously it's going to be a straight line from like here to here, but the ends are going to sort of like ghost off at the ends, right? I mean, you have this attack and then it becomes really solid over here, but somewhere between here and here is a transition where it's on the page and it's off the page. So you're not really sure where the pen starts. And then as you go off, the pen sort of disappears into the ether, right? Which is very cool for a variety of reasons, but when you're doing architecture stuff, it's super important to be precise because obviously people are reading your work to build content or to build structures, you know, to build buildings, content. Anyway, to build buildings, right? The same thing, I think, and then so when you draw, according to what this book's instructions say, what you want to do is you want to take your pen, put it on that piece of paper, make a little bitty dot, go exactly to the next point over there, so go here to here, and then stop, and then make a little bitty dot, right? Now if you can imagine that line, you know exactly where it starts and ends, and that those two dots make not only the ending points of that line clear, but somehow it makes the content between those points clearer, right? Because you know exactly where you're going and where you came from. And that's what I like to imagine. I mean, that's sort of how I like to explain why popping is super important when it comes to liquid, or why they work so well together. Because when you pop, that in and of itself is that dot. And then the liquid that occurs is the line between the dots, right? So if I have this, and then I have this up here, I can just sort of do it without the pops, right? But if I attack and then bounce, I feel stronger. As a dancer with my imagination, it makes things richer. And I'm pretty sure that it comes off like clear sort of what's going on here. So yeah, why don't we try that together? Let's just do this rail around this corner right here. And as I do this, here we're going to pop, boom, pop, 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 hit, hit, hit. Yeah, so that should clarify exactly. And so once you get this down, okay, so when you're super fluid, it's very difficult to like make distinct, different impulses occur in a short period of time. So there's this exercise that a lot of drawers do where when you draw something, you put the pen on the page and then you just draw with one line without taking your pen off the page. And you try to draw a whole thing with one unbroken line, right? That gets really difficult when there are lots of things that you're looking at. And you know, that's actually a good practice for a variety of reasons for people who draw. But what I'm trying to point out is that when you draw like that, you don't get all these like small interesting details that you get when you get to lift your pen off the page and create new lines, right? So what I like to think about popping is it gives you the ability to transition into different directions or impulses of movement. So for example, if I'm doing this, these folds here, and then I want to like sort of transition into a rail, I sort of instinctively do this, but I'm trying to do it without I'm trying to do it without the pops. And it's awkward, it's difficult. The pop gives me a point of leverage where I can sort of like slam down and say, all right, I'm stopped. Now I get to create a new sort of rule set for how movement occurs from here on out, right? All right, I totally forgot to do this and I really wanted to do this. So after you do this popping thing, I'm sort of angry myself for not going over this. Anyway, after you do this thing for a while, you obviously need to start incorporating that with movement, right? Because this in itself is, you're never going to go on a dance floor and just stand there like this. So what you want to do is we're going to try a different exercise where here we have this pop, boom, right? So this arm, my bicep and tricep are flexing, and at the same time this arm, my bicep and tricep are flexing. So I go boom, right? Pop, pop, pop. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go from here, we're going to pop up here, and then just go, let's see, down here, right? So here, I mean, it doesn't really, I'm not super stressing out about what my shapes are. I'm just trying to point out that here we have one shape and here we have another shape, and we're going to pop to make that transition. Or we're going to pop to distinguish that transition. Pop, 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 pop. So what you're doing is you pop and then you start moving, and then you pop and then you stop moving. Remember, keep in mind that you want to be as relaxed as possible in that transition state. Pop, 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 pop. It's going to be difficult, right? I mean, I can imagine it being difficult where you'd want to just like keep this. When you watch someone dance robot, you were probably thinking, wow, they must be stiff throughout the whole thing. And that's what happens when you have a beginner doing the robot. Usually they're like, it really hurts to watch them because they're too rigid. Really good people who can bot, they're able to have that sense of rigidity even though their body is completely relaxed, right? Anyway, so pop, 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 pop. And you're going to notice a few other interesting things going on here too. If you were just to do this not popping, right? Let's say my body happens to be here, and I just want to move it all the way up to here. You're going to notice a few interesting things, right? First of all, the quality of your movement is sort of more flowy, and it's more natural in its attack and its decay, right? The attack being how you start the movement from stillness and how you go back to stillness up here, right? So with popping, because you have these points and the line in between, the points are so strong that the line gets to be super linear. And that's what I'm trying to identify here, is that if I pop here, usually, so if I pop here, it gives me the ability to go from zero, like zero velocity, complete stillness, to 100% velocity, right? And that means, boom, that you can go from 100% velocity down to 0%. Um, and that means your movement vector is completely linear. You're going from 0 to 100% velocity until you hit your destination and you stop immediately, right? That is exactly how the classic sort of robot shape occurs when you move only in that linear progression, right? And notice the function that the popping takes as you do that. When you are here and you pop to start moving, it not only serves as a way to like traject your impulse. You know what I mean? It doesn't serve only as a way to just sort of like rocket boosters, sort of. But it also serves as a way to distinguish that you are still and you are no longer being still, right? And it's sort of like, another way that I like explaining this is let's say you're the Tin Man in Wizard of Oz, right? And you need someone you're rusted up. All your joints are sort of rusty. So if you're sitting here and you want to move somewhere, it takes a lot of effort to get you out of your rusty state, right? And then when you finally do bounce out of your rusty state, it's not the human thing where you go like this, right? I mean, it's a more like, it takes a lot of effort, and then when it finally clicks, it clicks really hard, right? Boom, right? And look how easy that is for my body just to do that. All I do is impulse, and then I go. But the illusion that I create is I do a lot of work, and then once the work gets set in motion, I must keep doing that work, right? And the same thing happens at the tail end of that when you hit your position. You're going from movement to you rust up again, right? And as we're doing this, I just want to point out that like I'm popping just right here with my arms, but you can sort of pop any muscle in your body with a caveat. That caveat is be really careful with your knees. I mean, like seriously, like don't abuse your knees in ways you don't need to. I'm almost 30 years old, and my knees are gonna get bad simply from just living my life, man. I mean, like I'm just doing my thing, and then I don't need, some stupid dance form to make me so that I can't walk from the age of 30 onward. You know what I mean? So this is how you don't want to pop with your legs. Don't do this. No, you just stop it, right? You don't want to do that. And also another thing, and I don't really see people abusing this because the legs, it seems like an obvious thing to want to do. People in your neck, I mean, it's the thing that connects your head to your body. Just don't fuck with that. It's like, it's a really important part of your body. So pay a lot of respect to those things. If you want to pop your knees, whatever. There are plenty of tutorials online how to do it properly. Just don't do it wrong. That's all I'm trying to say here. Anyway, so yes, what I was trying to get at is that you can pop your chest out or pop your chest in, and shoulders. I mean, there's lots of little articulations that you can do with popping. So anyway, as I was saying, back to liquid and back to all that stuff, is that like, popping serves as a way to propel and to propel your liquid forward, right? So if you're here and you want to go somewhere, it'll create that impulse that'll sort of fuel your liquid. But it creates this interesting way to let your liquid crash into things, right? So, boom. If that makes sense. Like, it means that you can have this flow that finds an obstruction in a really interesting way. And then you have to account for your obstructions, right? I'm going to touch really briefly on tutting. Obviously, last episode was tutting, and I was sort of going back and forth as to which I'd show first. Typically, tutting is taught after you know how to pop, and there's really good reason for that. But basically, all that framework stuff, I wanted to show you the framework stuff simply because it related very well to these large splits and all. to these large splits. But anyway, right now, the only thing I want to just say is that if you want to make your tuts really dynamic, you want to pop anytime you basically snap to grid, or anytime you hit, you like find your grid point that you want to hit, right? So if I'm going from, let's see, here to here, boom. Also, oh God, I'm so excited. There's so much that I want to talk about, but I'm not going to get into that. Anyway, so yeah, I think that sort of gives you a brief overview of all the things. There's so many things to talk about when it comes to popping. I might do a little bit more later on. But yeah, I think it really helps to delineate movement phrases that you've got going on. It also it just makes everything you do a little bit stronger if you can find ways to incorporate those pops. And a few ways to cheat all that stuff is to, instead of just focusing on like, so when I'm popping my fingers, I'm not actually popping my fingers. I think I'm popping either my biceps or my wrists even. But basically, what you're doing is you're creating the illusion of movement. Boom. But my focal point, my energy is thinking about how do I get to the next grid spot on my fingers. Boom, boom. So I'm not like, while I'm not actually physically exerting a hit onto my fingers, well, effectively I am. I'm effectively exerting a hit on my fingers through my biceps and triceps and forearms. Boom. And that gets to create interesting descriptive content or shapes and dance sequences with my fingers. So anyway, hopefully this was super useful for you. Hopefully you learn how to pop, and you can incorporate it into all the things that I've taught you so far. You know, all these things, they just get so much stronger when you just pop into your fluid motions and out of your fluid motions. And if you're a popper just watching this, thank you for checking it out. There's so much to learn from liquid, so tell all your popper friends. Yeah, cool. All right, peace.